Hey guys, it's Gleaming Garmore, and today I wanted to talk about a certain deck that you might say is my favorite and that I may specialize in, but I want to specifically talk about it in context of Simon from Kaizer Vanguard's recent Garmore deck profile. I procrastinated quite a bit on actually making this video, but Simon put out a Garmore deck profile about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and in it, he gave some advice that I don't quite agree with, and he said a couple of card choices that I personally would change out to improve the deck's to improve the deck's like kill capacity and its efficiency and its speed. So let's actually start talking about my card choices, and then we will sort of compare them to his card choices as we move along. So first of all, of course, we're playing for Garmore. That's the same between both of our builds, and Simon spent a lot of time hyping up Garmore's continuous ability. But I don't actually think that Garmore's continuous ability is that great. There's a couple of 1 or less card continuous effects and auto abilities in Gold Paladin that are good. Garmore's is not one of them. It says that your units cannot be retired or targeted for attacks. And Simon makes note that it is good against Narukami, which it isn't. If this were G-Era, in which Narukami retired and then bound cards, then this would be amazing against Narukami. But in Standard, Narukami just binds cards immediately, which is not great for this deck. This deck has a terrible Narukami matchup, actually. However, Garmore's auto ability on place, where you counterblast 1 and check the top 3 cards to call a card, is quite possibly one of the best skills in the deck, because you then get to give 6 units on your board plus 3. And I don't know if you can do math, but if you give plus 3 to 2 units in the same column, that's plus 6 to the column. That's a new magic number you're hitting. We also agreed to play 4 Battlefield Storm Sagramore. Sagramore is on place, Soul Blast 1, draw a card, call a card. It can trigger cards like Dindrain, and it can actually, if you use it in your if you use it during the ride phase, you can keep resolving cards and keep calling cards to power up the next grade 3 I want to talk about, Knight of Unison, Uzel. Now, in this spot, Simon was playing 2 copies of Platina Ezel, and I'm going to tell you why I don't agree with playing 2 Platina Ezels. I once did, but the more I playtested with Platina Ezel, the more I realized that Platina Ezel is a really slow card. Like, 2 grade 3s in Soul, there is no feasible way to do that in this deck before your third ride. In pure Ezel, it's probably fine because you're going first, you're superior riding, and then you're superior riding into Raven-haired Ezel. So then on your normal grade 3 ride, you get Platina Ezel's second skill live, or sorry, his modified skill live, I should say. But in this deck, you have to ride Garmore again, and then ride Platina Ezel, while also being sure to not have used all of your soul. And that's not very efficient at all. Instead, you want to use Uzel as another rearguard you can call to kill your opponent faster. He gains 5,000 power at the start of your main phase for each of your rearguards. Not each of your other rearguards, so if you do just have Uzel on your rearguard circle, he does still gain 5k. And we're going to talk about how Uzel can gain a lot of power in a moment. But first, let's move on to the grade 2s, okay? So, of course, we're playing 4 Advance of the Black Chains Kaiden. Kaiden is Counterblast 1, Discard 1, check top 3, call a card, shuffle, and then if you have his brother, Stronghold of the Black Chains Hole on the rearguard, then you draw a card. Now, another difference between our 2 lists. He ran 4 Vivian, I run 3 Vivian, because Vivian is the most cost-intensive check top 3 call in the deck. She does, however, gain plus 3 when she resolves her skill, which is neat, but you don't need 4 Vivian because of the other grade 2 we're playing, which is All Out Knight Athels. Athels was entirely absent from Simon's list. Instead, he played the Golden Beast Rampage Turtle, and Rampage Turtle is an 8k grade 2 that says if your opponent has less rearguards than you, then he has a Battledore skill, which is great and all, but you want to prioritize being able to actually fill up your board. because if you sacrifice even one source of superior calling, then that's it. You're not going to be doing nearly enough calls in the entire game. See, your goal is to overwhelm your opponent in sheer number of attacks, with also having a very solid Vanguard swing and Uzel at the same time, so that if they want to just Sentinel your attacks, they're going to have to Sentinel 2 of them. Also, two out of three of these grade 2s can be used in your Vanguard circle. So going first, or even going second, these are very effective in early game aggression. Even if you draw like Kaizen and Athels, you can ride Athels, discard a card, check top 3, hopefully call Hole, and then call Kaizen, use the one counterblast you've been given from your opponent attacking you, and then call another card. And if you called Hole, you get to draw a card. Or if Hole's on your board, you get to draw a card. And also, if Hole's on your board, then either Athels or Kaizen is going to gain +10. Which makes it so that your opponent has to try much harder to guard each individual attack. Usually, I, for one, like to no-pass my opponent's first and or second Vanguard swing a lot of the time. But it becomes a lot harder to do that when one of those Vanguard swings is 27. Now onto the grade 1s. Grade 1s were very different for us because, first of all, let's actually just talk about the cards we share. 8 of our grade 1s were the exact same. We played Dindrain because Dindrain is quite possibly the best Gold Paladin grade 1 staple card, except for another card we'll talk about in a moment. We played 4 Kaizen we played 4 Hole because if we're playing 4 Kaizen, we want to resolve Kaizen as much as possible with the draw. And then also, Hole is just really, really good at making columns, especially if you slap it behind your Vanguard and keep rewriting. And then our last grade 1 is actually the Knight of Vitality, Brenius. Knight of Vitality Brenius actually shares a skill with a card from Royal Paladin that saw a lot of play in premium blaster decks. When your grade 3 Vanguard is placed, or when your grade 3 or greater Vanguard is placed, my bad, you can put Brenius into your soul, and then you can draw a card and call a card. So you put Brenius into your soul, and then you Sagramore. So it's Sagramore, except it pays you for resolving. And what you can do is you can set up a Brenius on turn 2. And then, when you ride to grade 3, you can resolve the Brenius first, and then call, say, a Sagramore, or an Athels, or a Kaizen, or a Vivian. Use their skill to call another card. Perhaps using Vivian to call Kaizen. Kaizen's skill, calling another card. You draw a card. You use Garmore skill. You check top 3 again. You call a card, and then you have a full board to give 6 of your units +3. And that is the purpose of Brenius in this deck. That is why Brenius is such an important card, is because on your first grade 3 ride, it enables all of your combos. This card is crucial. This is part of why this deck isn't good against Narukami and Kagero, is because they can just retire your Brenius on their turn 2 and remove any chance of you using Brenius' skill on your grade 3 ride. It's very fragile if you play it the wrong way. However, I do think this deck is very good against decks that don't have any sort of targeted retire. As for our trigger lineup is drastically different. Simon was running front triggers, but I think that you should play crits. You should play lots and lots of crits. I'm playing 6 crits, and then I'm actually also playing an additional 2 draw triggers on top of my draw PGs. And allow me to explain. With cards like Kaizen and Athels, you are conducting discard costs fairly regularly. And to that end, you really need cards that are okay for you to discard. As such, a 5,000 shield vanilla unit seems like the best thing to get rid of in that kind of situation. Also, if you check these Foresight Couriers, they're going to check you into more Garmores to ride, or more Sagramores to call, or even just your draw PGs. Because just because Garmore says you get something if you have one or more, or if you have one or fewer cards in hand, doesn't mean you want to turbo your way to one or fewer cards. You want to make sure that you are replenishing your resources fairly frequently, and as such, draw PGs and also regular draw triggers are a really good way to do that. And I haven't actually explained the crits yet. The reason I'm playing crits and not fronts is because all of your attacks are already decently sized, so playing critical triggers adds a little bit of pressure to your Vanguard swing. For example, if your Vanguard is Garmore, and then you have a hole behind him, and for example's sake, let's also say that you have a Kaizen on your rear guard, because that's not hard to do at all, then Garmore is gaining 10,000 power, so he's already 22. Plus hole's 8k boost, so that's 30, plus 3 is 33. And then you don't even have to give that boost to something back here to force a heal trigger for or heal triggers aren't even one to pass against this. Your opponent has to guard with your opponent has to PG, or they have to drop like 2 crits for a 1 to pass, or perhaps a PG and a crit for a 2 to pass. Just once you've achieved numbers like that, you want to make sure that you are pressuring your opponent into guarding your Vanguard swing as much as possible. As such, you want to check those crits. Crits are amazing for making sure that your opponent either guards you, or they are just going to eat extra damage to their face. And there's no way around that. Also, of course, we're playing 4 heals because we are not morons. We're going to play 4 heals. Now, I said at the start that I wanted to talk about some of the gameplay issues that came up with Simon's recommendations. For one, he claims that Garmore is an Excel 1 deck because of Garmore's continuous ability. As I said earlier, just because you have an ability that activates when you have 1 or less cards in your hand doesn't mean that you want to actively be putting yourself in that situation. You just want it to be happening because you're guarding your opponent's attacks efficiently. Instead, you want to take Excel 2 and take the draw and use the draws to improve your offense. Because without the Excel 2 markers, you're not filling up your circles nearly as fast as you could be. Also, one more thing, he did say that if you didn't want to play Rampage, you could play Nemean Lion. Don't do that. If you don't want to play Rampage, please play Athels. This card's great. This card is it is literally Vivian, except you discard a card instead of counterblasting 1 and soul blasting 1. They put out a single rare that is just a cheaper version of a triple rare from the set literally right before it, a month after the fact, which is baffling. But Simon, if you want to talk at all about your Garmore list or about my Garmore list, hit me up. Leave a comment on this. We can get in communication. And I have no problem with you as a player. I just want to say that again. I'm not starting a beef. I am starting a discussion. Because different people take different decks in different directions. And I will honestly say that I don't want to play the way that you've set up. I actually forgot to talk about your other grade 1 choice that you played instead of Brenius. But it was Evil Slaying Swordsman Hogan. And Hogan is when your Vanguard hits, you can check top card and you can call it, and if you do, you retire Hogan. So he suggests slapping this on the Excel 1 marker, swinging for 18, and then swinging with Vanguard, and then your Vanguard hits, you check top card, you call it over Hogan. Which is fine and dandy, but I sincerely do not think the extra aggression from Hogan in later turns is as worth it as the extra aggression from Brenius is in earlier turns. Also, fun fact: if you want to play a Pelennor list or anything, first of all, I don't think Pelennor fits into the Garmore deck at all because you just use so much soul right away from all your calls. But if you want to play Pelennor, call this card to rearguard if you have a Pelennor in your hand, because once your Pelennor hits and you Superior Ride, that's your grade 3 or greater Vanguard being placed. You can then shove Brenius into soul and then call another card. But other than that, I don't think I really have anything else to say on his list, or even on my list. If you want to see this list in action, there's actually a video on it already, where I play it against Adam's Angel Feather deck, and I kill him on my first grade 3 turn before he can even get to grade 3. So, there's that. Deck's pretty good. Anyway, this has been Gleaming Garmore. I'll see you guys some other time.